Alright. Welcome back to the Adolescence. Welcome back to Adolescence of a Bookworm. Anime review, episode number 10. We're here reviewing episodes 18 to 20 of the series. Okay, so let me get back here for this one here. Here we go. So, these are 3 episodes that we're still in basically book 4 for the light novels. They started from chapter 12, and by episode 20... No, not that one. No. Thank you. Yeah, and by 20, they pretty much basically covered the volume chapter 24 of the light novels. You're like, that's interesting. Yep. So over the course of 6 episodes, they pretty much covered the 4th volume. I think they did a pretty decent job. So mostly put, here's what happens over the course of these episodes. So basically, after you get all the clean... So basically, after everything's set up basically in the office, and then of course they have like prepare the food, and then they're off basically. Of course, Mine wants to see the orphanage she's never seen before. So she does, and for some reason they decide to put basically a board and lock the door for some reason. And when they go inside, these orphan kids are basically like, some look like they haven't eaten in weeks. Like someone got bags in their eyes, like it's so dark, it looks so terrible. There's a kid over in the corner, looks like he's dying of starvation. So, just basically find a way to, well, take care of them. Of course, there's me with the high priest, of course. He turns on flat because basically of, well, the supporters of the high bishop being there. Though, she formulated a plan to basically deal with it. So, the plans for her becoming the director of the orphanage, and basically, well, hire the orphans as basically set up a workshop for the orphanage. Of course, she also says to Benna, which of course, Benna was kind of surprised she was actually going to do that, and of course, well, then of course, basically, like they gotta get that set up, of course, and of course, Mine is taken to a secret room, which I believe this room was actually first seen in the opening episode of the show, back in the previous season of the show, where we see the high priest there. And after having some discussion, of course, I'm talking properly noble society, and apparently this room can only be accessed by people with high level mana, which means retainers cannot access this room. So just basically only the high priest does. And of course, basically, thanks to the conversation, she's appointed the orphanage director, and she has apparently, at some point, 1 year prior to the show, prior to this, where all the great priests, everybody who was assigned to the orphanage was removed for some reason. Not really, there's no real reason for it per se. They don't say what the reason is. So, then she takes over as the orphanage director, where she brings some great priests there to clean the place up, clean up the orphans, and it looks like, though, apparently that, and what I can tell anyways, it looks like the high priest is taking Mine's shampoo, because also her retainers basically are using it too. Make all hair nice and shiny. Yep. And after getting the place cleaned up, of course, they're hired basically, the orphans are also given special clothes, and it's even shown like a Kebby thing, basically, where Fern and Gil are shocked the fact Mine actually wore this stuff because of the nice clothes she wears now. So get these type of clothes to the orphans who are unbaptized, put the other ones basically in great robes, and of course they basically put them to work. Not too strenuous work per se, like they go in the woods. Of course, they're brought there by adult supervision because technically some of these kids are because basically it's minors. They can't go there by themselves. So basically, Gunther volunteers to take him out there. Yeah, he's the captain of the guard, but he's doing it because basically Mine asked him to. So him and Tori basically go out, and of course they get some wood, and of course they get rewarded, and of course basically the first time they reward after the blessing, of course, they get rewarded with these steamed potatoes, and they can complain about it, but you only get rewarded. This is not basically this is not the thing of the arms of the gods. No, no, no. This actually is reward for their hard work. I guess they figured, okay, fine, work hard, you get paid, you get food. So, and of course, basically, everyone gets a reward with fruit, which was really cool. They mentioned about the whole thing with the Star Festival. There's a bit of a confusion with that one, where apparently this was a kid like throwing stuff around. Of course, basically, mine and Lutz get caught up in it, and then of course the orphans are stay in the orphanage, and of course they'll stay out of trouble. And they tried to basically and apparently some of the tiles. So they pushed one of the tiles down because it looks very dangerous to have one of those up because, yes. And then, the mine collapses. And of course, before they throw the things around, they throw a term. Look up, Lutz is there. Gives basically the one who basically are trained to use the blades, slice them up, and look, we can make paper now. Hooray! Yep. And then pretty much basically, so after chopping all those up, the mine collapses, and then after waking up, of course, then sees the high priest, and apparently the tiles were flipped over. Not sure how. I'm thinking aren't these things? I guess these tiles that in this courtyard are not coated in concrete because nobody put tiles on like that. Basically, been cased around with concrete. And it looks like basically the ground, so I take this. I also saw the animation show look like some grass has grown up a little bit between the cracks between the edges of these tiles. But looking at Fern basically was down to one of them, and somehow all of them flipped over. Somehow, some way they did. And all these kids are just throwing stuff out at each other. I'm like, how does that result in the... That was very confused, but then of course Mom's taken to attention. But of course Fern basically... was worried about her health, and then after a day, Maya is just basically unconscious because she collapsed. And the high priest thought he was saving face, but he forgot to take Maya's health into account. And of course, he has to repent because he had to do this. And I believe also during this, taking the episode 19, Maya figures out the high priest's real name is Ferdinand. Interesting. So then, of course, basically, you can try to work because the whole thing, the 20th episode of the show, is that Lutz's family are in a bit of disagreement over him leaving town to set up a shop. And there's also talk of, possibly adopting him. And so the high priest himself gets involved in this. Of course, they have these little listening devices, give the mind listening device. So they air the grievances out, and basically, Lutz reconciles them that they're running away. After also his brothers and his mother come by the shop. Apparently, these kids had no idea what the heck basically the brother was up to. And he was working, yes. But apparently, I don't know if he didn't tell them. I think they knew he was a merchant. They didn't know where the heck. They never heard of the place at all. So Turi took basically one of his brothers there. And of course, basically, goes home. Then he's thrown out. And the other brothers basically come by. And then the mom comes by. And then that's eventually the high priest. And the whole adoption thing is basically rejected, but it becomes sort of a different type of apprentice, basically trained to manage so he can succeed Benno in becoming... Well, him basically emerging is not much of an issue. It's basically him being parent. That's what basically Lutz's father has a problem with. But looks like Lutz continues to live with his parents, and Benno gets a successor out of it. I'm like, okay. But a lot of stuff happens over the course of 3 episodes. In 18 and 19 focus on the orphanage. 20 is all about Lutz. That's a lot Lutz. That's all about him that episode. And, well, that's pretty much it discussed there. It's just, that's all that happens. Overall, it just is really good. I thoroughly still enjoy these episodes. So, I now have 6 more to go for Season 2. I'll do this because I have to go out briefly to do some little bit of shopping, and I'll be back to work on the last 6 episodes. As for if I'll get a chance to work on Season 3 today, that's a maybe. Okay? See you later.